So the year is 2018. The 2018 Winter Olympics were going on. Ronda Rousey for some reason went to the WWE. Spoiler alert, she was bad. Black Panther came out. K-pop started its rise to stardom and dominance in the music industry. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Spider-Man PS4 came out. Childish Gambino released This Is America. Crazy Rich Asians was a really good movie. Mega Man made his epic comeback after 8 years of not having a single game. The Philadelphia Eagles beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. LeBron James went to the Lakers, and we got a fighting game with extremely high potential, but unfortunately it never reached its peak. There is a wide variety of fighting games out there in this crazy world of garbage. A video game genre based on 2 or more characters in a random setting to initiate combat with each other. Some characters have reasons to kill another, and others are just there for the fun of hitting something or someone. Having the ability to attack in multiple different ways, defending, grabbing, counterattacking, and starting up a chain of combos to deal the most damage you possibly can. You even have special attacks and super moves for a little extra flair and added hype. You have a wide range of fighting types, up close and personal, zoners with projectiles, tactical and technical fighters, and carpal tunnel characters. Yeah, those exist. A ton of unique characters with their own skill sets and their own difficulty of play, unique stages, and amazing music to boot. Some fighting games have tons of content, or Street Fighter 2 and gets milked by God himself. Iconic games such as Street Fighter, Tekken, Dead or Alive, Mortal Kombat, Marvel vs. Capcom, Soul Calibur, King of Fighters, and we can even add Smash Bros. To this conversation. But as we begin to get new fighting games, we get a lot of anime, and things start to get a little interesting. There are a lot of anime-based fighting games. Lots of popular anime are getting their chance at the 2D or 3D style type of combat gaming. Dragon Ball FighterZ, My Hero One's Justice, Jump Force, Kill la Kill, Demon Slayer, Naruto Storm, and a lot more. Some of the more unique fighting games have their own anime art style as well. One of the more iconic companies of making these type of anime games is Arc System Works, and their nice variety of fighting games such as Guilty Gear, Fighters, Kill la Kill, and Grand Blue Fantasy. But the game I'm talking about today is from the franchise BlazBlue, an Arc System Works original with more games than you think. So let's dig in and see if this game still holds up. BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is originally a BlazBlue game while adding characters from other franchises into the BlazBlue universe. It is a 2D crossover fighting game that was released on May 31st, 2018 in Japan, June 5th, 2018 in North America, and June 22nd, 2018 everywhere else on PS4, Nintendo Switch, and PC. It features multiple fighting game series and a franchise that doesn't even have a fighting game, but Arc System Works made it work in the end. A crossover between BlazBlue, Persona 4 Arena, Under Night In-Birth, RWBY, Arcana Heart, Akatsuki Blitzcomp, and Senran Kagura. Originally, the game received positive reviews with the visuals, music, online functionality, and more. On release, the game sold over 11,000 copies on the PS4 and over 4,000 copies on the Switch. These are numbers for a game like this, but the main critique for this game was the lack of content. There wasn't much to do besides play the story mode or survival mode. Although, the game was nominated for Best Fighting Game at the 2018 Game Awards, and that honestly says something about this game overall. So, does this game still hold up today? Let's find out. So the main gimmick of this game is that instead of a one-on-one fight, you can pick an endless pair of characters to fight with in a 2-on-2 setting. You can summon them in battle for extra attacks and combo chain, or even switch into said partner to do more damage. It's a lot of fun and non-stop with how fast the game goes by. It's very quick and can make things more interesting to watch. Let's go over the variety of gameplay mechanics. First off, we have the cross gauge you can see at the bottom, which is the main way to bring in your partner, which uses up half of the skill gauge and it goes up as you play. Whether you take damage or give damage, it's going to go up either way. You can also have your partner fight alongside you for a limited amount of time in a 2-on-1 setting by summoning your partner by pressing a cross burst button to begin a cross combo to do damage and until the cross gauge runs out, or if you and your partner get attacked, your partner will return back and it's back to a 1-on-1. You also have another gauge that goes up. This one allows you to use special moves, which take up 2 of your 5 skill points. Next up, continuing with the cross gauge, that little diamond right there is your Resonance Blaze. As you summon your partner or do auto combos or do a clash Clash attack and get an excellent, marvelous, or use the extra assault, you'll fill it up with one smaller diamond and that slowly charges up during the fight, and it's very important for you when you lose one of your fighters. The resonance meter is the third meter, and like I mentioned earlier, as you play through the match, your resonance meter fills up like a nice glass of Sprite. Both teams start off with one diamond at the beginning of the match, and it slowly goes up depending on your actions. So when your partner dies, depending on how many diamonds you have in your resonance meter depends on what level you'll have and how much your skill gauge will go up, but we'll get to that later. It can also be known as a comeback system of sorts when you don't have your other fighter alongside you because, you know, they died. So if you filled up all the way and you still have both of your fighters with you, or if you're alone and your opponent have both of their fighters with them, it won't do anything, especially when you're alone, because that's when it really goes into effect. But once one of your fighters loses all their HP, you can activate your Resonance Blaze. This will give you 15 seconds to do whatever you want, and by whatever you want, I mean you can still play the game, but when you do your 2 special attacks, it'll give them more power and extra damage. But your resonance level is based on how much your resonance meter is filled up, like I mentioned earlier. So in this example here, Kanji can activate his Resonance Blaze because he's alone. Once he does, you'll see that his resonance level is level 4. That is the max level of resonance you can get because your meter is all the way filled up, and it gives him 4 more skill points added to his skill gauge. But that goes up on its own once the resonance is activated instead of automatically going to 9, because that would be really broken if it did. This gives him a lot more options for attack. He can use 4 special moves in a row instead of 2, and he can also activate his instant kill move. Obviously, every character has an instant kill, but it can only be activated on a few conditions. The skill gauge must be all the way up to 9, and once it gets there, it'll stay in the blue color because your opponents still have both of their fighters alive. But if your opponent has only one fighter left and it's just a one-on-one situation, the meter will turn orange, and that will give you the opportunity to activate your instant kill. But you're still on the timer of the Resonance Blaze to activate it. Once the timer is up, you can no longer use Resonance Blaze for the rest of the match, and you won't have any of the benefits that come with it, and your skill gauge will go back to 5 skill points max instead of 9. So the Resonance Blaze is a bit of a comeback mechanic that most fighting games have, and it'll give you a big step into completing the comeback if you know what you're doing and if you believe in yourself, or if you play the Persona characters and you have the power of friendship on your side. Extra Assault is the strongest form of the Clash attack. By pressing whatever your Clash button is mapped to, you can spend your whole bar of your skill gauge for extra damage. Next up, you have your throws, and you can throw your opponent in front of you or direct your character the opposite way they're facing to make them throw their opponent behind them. Also, whenever you're moving backwards and you're attacked, you automatically block, and you can block either high or low. Certain attacks can break your block whether they attack low when you're blocking high or the other way around. You can push your opponent away from you when blocking, but that costs you 1 skill point from your skill gauge, so you have to be smart and try not to spam it when you're stuck in the corner. Then you can switch to your partner if you aren't doing anything by pressing your change button, but there are multiple ways to switch into your partner. I also want to mention that comparing the game's mechanics to the games that are represented made me realize that they really simplified this game for these characters to work in this engine. And because Arc System Works made BlazBlue, Persona 4 Arena, Under Night, and the Arcana Heart games, it will make sense if they all separately use the same engine but with different character sprites and artwork to make them more distinct as their own games. BlazBlue Central Fiction, Persona 4 Arena, Under Night, In-Birth, Arcana Heart, Akatsuki Blitz-Conf, and Senran Kagura on their own are a lot more complex, and the learning curve is much more of a curve than BB Tag. They really had to minimize the characters' movesets and skills in order to transfer them into this game, but it really works. Although if you come to this game from the games I mentioned, you're gonna have to learn these mechanics and get used to the more simplified gameplay style. And you're probably wondering about RWBY. Well, as most people who've watched RWBY or are fans like myself, there's no RWBY fighting game that we know of, or that's in development. I mean, we really don't know. During the development of this game, Rooster Teeth was teasing the possibility of a RWBY fighting game made by Arc System. Unfortunately, we never got a RWBY fighting game, but after the finals winner of the BlazBlue Central Fiction tournament was decided, that was when a quick trailer dropped showing off Ragnar the Blood Edge and Jin Kisaragi, the 2 faces of BlazBlue, talking their smack, and then out of nowhere, Akami and Hyde Keto join the battle, and the trailer plays, the crowd goes crazy, and after that, RWBY comes in and makes an appearance and confirms that RWBY is now in the mix. So Arc System took the original idea of the Rooster Teeth RWBY fighting game and put that into cross tag. Speaking of originality, kind of. I think it was a good move that Arc System decided to not give the other franchises their own BlazBlue sprites, but to keep the ones they have in their original games. They made the RWBY sprites completely from scratch and they look great, and Akatsuki's sprite is from his guest appearance in Under Night In-Birth. So you can kind of say that the RWBY characters are original characters since they didn't come from any other fighting game. Speaking of characters, when this game originally came out, there were only 20 characters to start off with in the base game. BlazBlue had 10, Persona 4 Arena and Under Night had 4, and RWBY had 2. These bunch of characters make sense to be a part of the base game. Obviously, since BlazBlue is the main franchise of this game, it only makes sense for them to have the most characters. Persona 4 Arena and Under Night's original roster makes a ton of sense, especially Persona 4, but I'm being biased about that. And the inclusion of Ruby Rhodes and Best Girl White Schnee adds more variety. So this is how the game originally started, and everyone knew there was so much room to grow, especially with a roster of characters with endless possibilities for some amazing DLC characters from each franchise and even adding more into the picture. Well, that's exactly what they did. This was one of those games that started off small, and as time went by, the game started to expand, and eventually we got ourselves the first season of DLC characters in 6 volume packs featuring 3 new characters per pack. 1 from BlazBlue, 1 from Persona, and 1 from Under Night. Along with that pack came 2 new RWBY characters, Blake Belladonna and Yang Xiaolong, who were free. BlazBlue added Platinum the Trinity, Jubei, Hakumen, Izuyoi, Mai Natsume, and Nai the Phantom. Persona added Kanji Tatsumi, Aigis, Naoto Shirogane, Mitsuru Kirijo, Akihiko Sanada, and Labras. Finally, Under Night brings in Orie, Carmine, Batista, Merkava, Yuzuriha, and Mika. Overall, a great way to boost morale for this game, and some really good and logical picks to make an appearance in this game, and now this game is looking bigger and better. You think it can't get better than that, but it did. There was a massive update to this game, and it was dubbed BB Tag 2.0. Not only did this update a lot of the gameplay and mechanics, but we got 13 more characters, and with those 13 characters, 3 new franchises were added in as well. Arcana Heart added Heart Aino, Senran Kagura added Yumi, and Akatsuki Blitzkopf added Akatsuki himself, and Blitz Tank? Yeah, we got a tank in a fighting game. The most hyped character in this game to see in competitive. A war machine in a 2D fighting game setting. Absolutely amazing. Also, with the 4 main franchises represented, BlazBlue added Celica A, Mercury, Naoto, Kurigane, and Susanoo. Persona added Teddie, Elizabeth, and Toru Adachi. Under Night added Seth and Hilda. And finally, RWBY added Neapolitan. A great set of characters and a great expansion to the game. And everyone was ready for another wave of characters to come in. And without a lot of waiting and potential teasing, we never got it, and honestly, I think we're finished with BB Tag as of now, and I would be extremely surprised if we get a 3.0 update, but the possibility is as thin as air itself. Overall, I'm okay with the roster ending here, even though there are so many more characters that could have been included. I will talk about that a little bit later in the video. This is a great roster, and all of the hype going into these character reveals was definitely worth the wait, and I personally think it's worth the money. I would like to mention my favorite characters to play and my certified main in this game. I only have one character that I play literally all the time as one half of my pair, and that character is Kanji. He's one of the most fun characters for me personally, and I usually pair him up with Platinum, Narukami, Chie, Teddie, Mitsuru, Adachi, Hyde, Weiss, Blake, Hart, Yumi, and Akatsuki. If we're getting a little bit more specific, these are the characters I see myself playing the most alongside Kanji. Alongside the variety of characters, we got ourselves a nice story mode. It's rightfully called episode mode because that's pretty much what it is. The overall plot is that there is a singularity called the Phantom Field, and it mixes different realities with other universes, because that makes total sense. There are these things called keystones, and they are divided into 4 different fragments. A weird female voice system that's weirdly named system that everyone questions, but she just ignores them and forces a group of 4 to fight for the fragment because apparently that's how life works. The main characters have to find and collect all the keystones by fighting people and stealing and attempting murder. You know, the usual. Once all the keystones are collected, they merge into one massive stone that resembles the keystones, and supposedly they would allow the universe to be changed and to let the characters from a different universe go back to their own universes, but it does the complete opposite. And I just realized that I am kind of just like saying all this, and I realized, oh, this is literally just the RWBY episode. You don't do this in the other 3 episodes. So yeah, there's the RWBY episode for you. Then we found out that Hazama was working with the system, but then once he uses the keystone, the system eventually loses control of the multiverses. Once the main characters figure out what's going on, they have to fight the system and bring the multiverses back together. I'll be honest, it's not terrible, but it's not really that engaging. It's the same thing over and over again. Dialogue, fight, more dialogue, move on to the next chapter, rinse and repeat. But for me, the character interactions interactions makes this a fun story mode. Everyone is meeting each other for the first time and working together to achieve their goals and learning more about said characters. There are 4 different episodes that circle around the protagonists of each franchise. BlazBlue story around Ragna, Persona with Yu, Under Night with Hyde, and RWBY with RWBY. It's all the same story, just from different perspectives of our protagonists, and funny enough, the keystones based on each episode you're playing matches the main color of said episode. So in episode Persona 4 Arena, the keystone is yellow. Haha, very funny choice, developers. But this is only half of the story mode. When the 2.0 update came out, not only did the game expand to something better, added more characters and all of that, but we got another episode added into the mix, and this one is a lot more carefree and a lot more fun, and is mainly circling around character interactions of most, if not all, of the DLC characters, and there are some very fun and wholesome moments in between the fighting. This story is circled around Naoto Karagane and the system. She's back and guiding Naoto around the multiverse and collecting 5 stamps and meeting new people, fighting and playing ping pong, because why wouldn't you play ping pong in an anime game? Luckily in this story mode, for both episodes 1 and 2, you don't have to know about these character stories or know anything specific about each franchise in order to understand the story. It's mainly you being able to say, I get that reference, like Captain America once said, because you know the backstory of these characters. It's a bit of an optional reward for playing these games before playing this one. But like I said, you don't have to learn about the lore of these characters or the lore of their stories to enjoy the character interactions in the story mode. Not only that, but episode 1 was obviously part of the base game, although it does reference future playable characters like Kanji, Orie, Blake, and more. You weren't able to play as those characters because they weren't programmed into the game to be playable, but it's nice to see that they were able to bring out these characters and add a bit more depth to every episode. Also, as I've played through episode 1 of the story mode for this video, I'm starting to think that all the episodes are connected in some way, but that's a lot of explanation and confusing details to go into, so no thank you. Speaking of confusing, the story is definitely one-sided, and honestly, we don't know why the keystones are needed in the first place or why they're here. Unless I'm missing something, I'm not gonna play this again just to understand it, honestly. It's not that engaging for me to where I want to go back to the game in order to learn about these. It's not like that, you know? I think the second episode is much better than the first episode. There's a lot of fan service for the fans of every respective franchise, with lots of different Easter eggs to discover through dialogue, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, so there is a lot of good in this game, but where does this game fall off? This is not a bad fighting game at all. It had a really good run when it came out, it's lots of fun to play, but it eventually lost all of its steam. Like I mentioned earlier, there really isn't much to do in this game. The only options are the story mode, versus matches, online, survival, and training. That's literally it. I wish it added some more modes from Central Fiction, like a traditional arcade mode or the Grim of Abyss mode. From Persona, they could have added the Golden Arena mode and expanded that mode a bit more and make it better than it is in the original Persona 4 Arena Ultimax game. Or add some original modes to make the game a bit more playable. We thought there were gonna be some more modes when the 2.0 update came out, but we didn't get anything. Let's talk about the roster of characters. I'm aware that we have 53 characters represented in this game, and that's awesome, that's great. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it though, but this roster has so much more that it could have given us from all the franchises, including BlazBlue. Here are my personal picks of characters to include with what we already have. From BlazBlue, we got Hibiki, Bullet, Lychee, Valkenhayn, Kokonoe, Kagura, Taokaka, Terumi, Arakune, and Izanami. From Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, I got Rise, Junpei, Yukari, Marie, Margaret, Sho, and Minazuki. Under Night, I would add Nanase, Phonon, Enkidu, Chaos, and Byakuya. Now RWBY. Oh boy, RWBY. RWBY was a lost cause because of the extremely high potential with the massive amount of characters that could have and probably should have been added in this game. Names such as Jeanne Arc, Crow, Nora, Ren, Coco, Roman Torchwick, Cinder, Pyrrha. Oh god, Pyrrha, please. Penny, Emerald, Mercury, Arthur, Velvet, Maria, Neptune, Tyrion, Winter, Salem, and so many more. But we'll just have to wait until the RWBY fighting game comes out, but that'll never happen. Just imagine all of these different pairs and the character interactions with this roster, and even the franchises I didn't mention could be a part of this as well. I counted it up and added the number of characters we already have, and it comes up to 93 characters. That's more characters than the Smash Ultimate roster if you add Echo Fighters. Just think of it as the Smash Bros of anime type fighting games. That would be amazing. The next massive critique is that the story mode could have been fleshed out a bit more. I believe episode 1 should have been like episode 2, but it would be cool if we could make a choice on what side we want to go with. Basically different endings for every episode protagonist. The keystones are literally the exact same stones but split into 4 different colors. I believe that design wise they could have shaped the keystones into a symbol that represents Persona, BlazBlue, Under Night, and RWBY instead of taking the lazy way out. The final boss in each episode is kind of like the keystone issue. It's literally the same thing but different colors. I believe they should have had us face off against different villains, or if they wanted to keep the same vibe, then maybe take the original design of the keystone and bring it to life, then we can fight. Episode 2 did this really well with the last fight being Susanoo instead of just some machine thing. What even is that? I don't even know what that is. Just a small variety and diversity issue because it's very repetitive. Also, the system as a character is super annoying as she has no backstory or origin story or anything that explains why she's here. She continuously interrupts character interactions, runs away from questions regarding the main situation following the characters, she gives out useless information, and she reminds me of one of my managers from a past job who had high energy but just enough to make her super annoying and unlikable. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the system in case you couldn't tell. Rachel and S aren't any better because all they want to do is get the keystones for some reason, and we will never know what that reason is for because they never explain themselves. Like, why? Why do characters do this? Why do they want something but they don't explain why they do said thing? But we can't like relate to you if we don't know what your motive is. We can't engage in your character if we don't know why you're doing what you're doing. The only difference between all 4 episodes, besides the endings, which are barely any different from each other, is that in the BlazBlue episode, it's the only episode that allows you to choose your ending through dialogue options. I guess it makes sense because BlazBlue is the main franchise represented in this game, and also BlazBlue is literally in the title, but the other 3 don't get those options, which would have been really nice to see considering that also would have brought more depth and variety to the story mode. In my opinion, the only unique episode of all 4 of these is either BlazBlue or Persona. I'm leaning towards Persona because as you make progress in each chapter, you come across a new member of the investigation team, and they all travel together throughout the Phantom Realm to figure out everything, and honestly, I believe that you get the most information from this episode. In the other 3 stories, the protagonists usually start off with their partner, and after the first fight, they split up and they meet other characters. The investigation team doesn't do that because they're a whole squad of friendship. The power of friendship always prevails. They're only missing Teddie and Rise, and they mention them in the story as well. Teddie at the time was in the game to begin with, and I doubt Rise was even considered to be playable in this game at any point. They could have added Teddie while developing him for the 1.1 update and then added him into the story mode like they did with Kanji and Naruto and other characters that we couldn't play as at the time. I'm pretty sure I can say that for BlazBlue and Under Night. RWBY already had Blake and Gang in the story mode at the time, and 2.0 wasn't even being developed yet, so Neo wouldn't have been there whether she was a planned character or not. Okay, enough about the story mode. I think we're done talking about it for now. I keep talking about what's literally right in front of me on my script. For some odd reason, we can only play 1 match every time we play a versus mode. We can't pick a best of 3 or best of 5 or more like we can in most fighting games, which I believe should have been an easy implement and should have been a part of the 1.1 or 2.0 updates or even a patch in the base game after it came out. This part isn't really a critique, I just want to mention this because I think this would be pretty cool, but this was really more of a aesthetical choice, so it doesn't really matter. But I was watching RWBY one time while playing this game, and I would have thought it would be pretty cool if they added the designs from volumes 4 through 8 as color options. If you watch RWBY, you know how their design changes throughout the series. I think that would have been pretty cool. Also, I know the main gimmick of this game is 2-on-2 tag battle, but at some point in the story mode, we have a 1-on-1 and even a 2-on-1. I wish there was an option for 1v1, 2v1, or even pull a fighters and go 3v3. Arc System knows how to make 3v3 work because they made fighters, so it would have been pretty cool to pick 3 characters from this roster to fight instead of 2 sometimes. So yeah, the highs are pretty high, but the lows are also very low. I'm not saying that the things I have critiqued are bad, it's more like poor decision making on the devs part and everything I've critiqued so far. I'm not saying that the things I critiqued in this game shouldn't have been added, but they should have been fleshed out a bit more throughout the game, and as this game was getting updated, there should have been more stuff other than just characters, and that's literally it. I mean, yeah, characters pretty much makes the game, but there are other things that can make a game memorable other than the characters. The story mode could have been a more memorable experience with more diversity. There were some obvious character choices that didn't make the cut. This should be more to do other than online or offline matches. RWBY Why can't we walk around this city area over here and talk to playable characters who could act as NPCs? Also, what is this character select screen? What is this? There are a lot of other smaller things that I probably forgot to mention, but I believe with these touch-ups and changes and a bit more attention from the devs after 2.0, this could have been the Game of the Year nominee. This game hasn't been updated or patched since December 4th, 2019, and as I'm recording this, 2 years ago, and for those 2 years ever since the release of 2.0, we've been speculating a 3.0 update, and now we must deal with the fact that BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is unfortunately officially over. This game had so much potential going into it, and it started off very well, and it kept going and getting better as time flew. I believe the peak of this game was when 2.0 came out, and that's when it started to fall off. We got so excited for the future of this game after the groundbreaking 2.0 update, but our dreams never came to fruition. So, I need to ask this question. Is BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle a good game? Yes, it is a really good game. The only things that hold it back from reaching its true potential is that it's lacking. The character roster is amazing, but also could have been expanded even more. BB Tag is like a high prospect college athlete that people have their eyes on, and they claim that they are the future. But when they go pro, they show amazing promise at the beginning, but they fall way too early and turn into a really solid role player they can rely on that was never able to show their true potential and what they can really do and become a superstar. I really love this game, but eventually I got bored, and I come back to it every now and then, but I don't play it for as long as I want to. I love that this game is still alive, but it is at the edge of a cliff that's ready to fall at any moment. But the fact that this game is as memorable as it is, in my opinion, makes this a really solid fighting game. If I were to give this game a ranking, I would give it a nice 7.6 out of 10. If what I mentioned in my critique section was added, this would easily be, at worst, a 9.5 out of 10. And that is absolutely amazing. This game is very lucky that there are games that make us engage and love these characters and know their stories and past. Imagine if this was the first time we would ever see these characters. Or imagine if you've never played a BlazBlue game or a Persona game, or if you didn't watch RWBY. This game will get you to play those games if you're interested and experience their own perspectives and their own stories. When I originally wanted this game, I was mainly in it for Persona 4 and RWBY. At the time, I was playing through Persona 4 Golden for the 100th time, and I was in the middle of watching RWBY Volume 3 through 5, and I saw this game on YouTube, and it grabbed my attention when I saw Yuri Norakami and Ruby Rose, and I was like, I know those characters, I want this game. Not only that, but while I was playing this game, I really wanted to learn more about BlazBlue and Under Night, and 5 months after I bought the game and have been playing it for hours, because I have literal hours into this game is great, and one day I hope this game fulfills its potential and Arc System Works gives it the chance that it deserves, or they just make a RWBY fighting game or something, I don't know. This is going to be as close as we get to a RWBY fighting game. Well, so much for that. Can't wait for Persona 4 to be an Ultimax 3 featuring Persona 1 characters. So as my final words to this great game, may fate treat you well, and we shall be back when our fates cross each other. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.